All right, so on today's lesson, we're going to go through and put in a whole bunch of brush-based entities around and under and as part of this elevator that we're working on. Now, we're going to do this elevator over several days because it's quite a bit more complicated than the other elevators we've done. So today we're going to go through and get everything named. We're going to get all the entities put in. We're not going to do any outputs or anything yet, so that'll be tomorrow. So today we're going to go through and put in all these brushes, and I'll show you the names of each one. You can pause the video and set them up. And then our final thing on Wednesday will be to go through and get everything configured as far as what controls what and what animates and what stops and all that stuff. So let's take a look at the elevator itself. So this elevator, you should have the elevator prop, which is a dynamic prop. And I want you to go ahead and just follow my naming scheme on these things so that, if we have any issues, we can look directly at my name. So I have two elevators on this particular map. So you're going to see this one named Elevator 2. So just follow along with me. Just name yours Elevator 2. That way, if you have anything wrong, you know that you can look at the video and match it up exactly the way I have it named. All right. So this is the prop dynamic, and this is the frame of the elevator. So I'm going to go ahead and name it Freight. And for its parent, go ahead and put in Elevator 2 or Elev2. Okay, it's going to be red because we haven't created this entity yet. But go ahead and set this up just like this. So this is the prop of the elevator, the body or the car of the elevator. So I named it Freight, and its parent is going to be Elev2. And this will be red because we haven't created it yet. Now the doors, let's take a look at the doors here. So again, this is a prop dynamic. The parent, again, is going to be Elev2. And the name, I put Elev2 underscore doors. All right, so this is the door model, these animated doors. So the parent is going to be Elev2. The name is going to be Elev2 doors. All right, inside the elevator, you'll notice there's this massive trigger box that takes up the entirety of the inside of the elevator. So I want you to go ahead and create a box using your block tool. Okay, block tool. Now I want you to make a box that fills up the entire inside of the elevator, every inch of it, or as close as you can get to it. I mean, I don't want anywhere in the elevator the player can stand that this trigger isn't being touched. Okay, so fill the elevator top to bottom, left, right, forward, backward. Make a box, cover it with our trigger texture. Okay, so it's going to be over here, and it would be the trigger texture. All right, so make a box on the inside of the elevator. And then once you've created it, right click, tie to entity, and I would like it to be a trigger multiple. Okay, now what trigger multiple means is that this trigger can be fired over and over and over again. And the purpose of it is to close the elevator doors when the player gets out of the elevator. So that's why I want it to fill the elevator completely. So once you leave the elevator, it will trigger this thing. All right, the name is going to be Elev door close trigger. It's going to close the doors, so I named it elevator door close trigger. The parent is going to be elevator 2 or Elev2. All right, so this is a giant trigger box that takes up the entire volume of the inside of the elevator. So I took a block tool, selected trigger, created it, tie to entity. I made it a trigger multiple. Click apply. The name is elevator door close trigger. The parent is elevator 2. Okay, so I'll close that. Now, at the floor of the elevator, you'll see this no draw box right here. Okay, so this is going to be what the player stands on. We're going to get better results from the elevator if we're not standing directly on the track train. It just rides a little smoother, and sometimes the player glitches a little bit if they're standing directly on the track train. So since this is our final edition of our elevator, this is going to be our best one. So what I want you to do is take your block tool. Okay, take your block tool, and you're going to make a block that fills the entire floor of the elevator. And you can see it right here. It's at the same height as the elevator floor. I covered it with the material called no draw. Okay, so it's no draw. So I made a block, I covered it with no draw, and I put it right on the floor of the elevator. So if you look here, it kind of fights with the elevator a little bit because it's not sure which one to draw. It's trying to draw the floor of the elevator, but it's also trying to draw this block right here. Okay? So once you draw that block in, you cover it with no draw. All sides, cover it with no draw. Come over here, right click, tie to entity, and this is going to be a function brush. Click apply. We're going to name it elevator floor, and its parent is also elevator 2 or elev2. So far what we've got the car of the elevator, we've got the trigger box on the inside here, and we've got this no draw box. This is what the player is actually standing on. Now if we go underneath the elevator, you're going to see I have another no draw box, this one right here. This is the actual track train. We're not letting the player stand on it. We're going to get a little bit better results out of it. Sometimes it just shudders a little bit if the player's standing directly on the brush that's moving as the track train. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a box. And you'll notice mine is a few inches underneath the elevator. So I just took my block tool, I made a box right here, and you can see this is the bottom of the elevator. This sits a few inches below it. There isn't a precise amount, it's just this is the actual track train right here. The rest of this stuff is all the visual props that the player is dealing with. So I make a box, cover it with no draw, then right click on it, tie to entity. This is going to be my function track train. So this is the actual thing that's moving. Everything else is a child of this particular object. Okay? So I made a box with the block tool. I covered it with no draw. You can see it's just a thin little platform, and it sits just a little below the elevator so the player can't touch it. I right clicked, I went tie to entity, select function track train, click apply, and this is elev2. So this is what everything else is parented to. Remember when we went through with the doors, we parented them to elev2. The elevator is parented to elev2. The trigger is parented to elev2. The no draw box is parented to elev2. So everything gets parented to this guy right here. Right? Now, on the outside of my elevator, we have our button. I want you to make a box, cover it with no draw. And you can see it's covering my button right there. And we're going to right click, tie to entity. This is going to be a function button. Click apply. The name is elevator button lobby. This is my button that's in the lobby. If this is your basement button, name it basement, doesn't matter, but this is going to be my button that stays here in the lobby. Now do not parent this button. This button does not move. This one sits on the wall. Let's go down into my basement. All right, so here's my basement. This is where the elevator goes to. I have another button, because once you get down in the basement, you need to be able to leave. So I have another button, so same thing. I took my block tool, I made a box, I right click on it, tie to entity, function button, the name, I called this one elevator button basement, no parent, because this button doesn't move. This one's mounted to the wall. Click apply. Right? So I have a button in the basement. I have a button up here. I've got my trigger. I've got the floor of the elevator. I've got the elevator itself. I've got the doors. I've also got the track train. Now, the last thing we're going to do today is set up the path tracks. We're not going to have anything connected to them yet, but we're going to go ahead and set up the path tracks. So tomorrow's lesson, we're going to go through and do all the outputs for every single item, okay? So remember how this works. We have 3 path tracks. We've got a spawn path track. We've got a floor 1 path track and a floor 2 path track, okay? So I want you to take your entity tool, select path track, okay? And we're going to create 2 path tracks on your main floor. So here's my path tracks. There's one. There's the other one. So they're right here. They're kind of hard to see, but they're a little bit easier to see in this view right here. I've got one, and then the other one sits right above it. And then down at the other floor, I've got the other one. Now let's name them. So one of them is going to be your elevator path spawn. Remember the way they work. One of them we spawn the elevator at. The other 2 are the ones we actually track back and forth. Okay? So at your top floor, wherever you're starting at, you're going to create one called elevator path spawn. The next stop target is going to be elevator path basement. This will be red because we haven't created this one yet, or we haven't named this one yet. We've created it, but we haven't named it. Okay? So elevator path spawn is the name of this one. Its next stop target is elevator path basement. Now, the one at the bottom, this is the basement one. Its name, elevator path basement. Next stop target, elevator path lobby. Okay? So this is the one that's in the basement. Elevator path basement is its name. Next stop target is elevator path lobby. Now back to the top. We've got one more up here. Its name, elevator path lobby. Next stop target, elevator path basement. So those are my 3 path tracks. Remember, it takes 3. We have one that we spawn, and then we have the 2 that we go between. So one of them is this guy here, then this is the lobby, and then down at the bottom, I've got the one in the basement. Okay? So that's the setup of the names of all of the pieces that we're going to be dealing with tomorrow when we start configuring all of the outputs. Let me run this real quick so you can see what it's going to look like. And my game's already running. Okay, so there's the elevator. Doors are closed. I'm going to press the button. Doors open. I get in the elevator. press the button, doors close. Now I go down to the first floor, or the basement, I guess. All right, I'm in the basement. I hop out. Now watch this feature. The doors close. Okay, I do whatever I'm going to do down here in the basement. I press the button, opens the doors. Press the button, doors close. Ride the elevator back up to the top. I'm at the lobby, doors open. Now watch, as I leave the elevator, the doors are going to close. Okay? So this is a really nice, very functional, very realistic elevator. It does exactly what an elevator is supposed to do. I press the button, it opens. I get out, the doors should close again. There we go. So if I'm not in it, if I get out, the doors are going to close behind me. All right? Name everything. After you're done, work on your lobby, work on your basement, or vice versa, whichever you're working it. And tomorrow we'll put in all the outputs to kind of finish everything up.